Hey folks, welcome back. So in this lesson, we're going to take a look at CloudFormation drift detection. So in the DevOps doctrine, let's click on Stack Drift Detection. All right, so before we talk about drift detection, let's talk a little bit about the problem. Now, as you've heard many times by now, CloudFormation is infrastructure as code. And one of the big mantras of code is reuse. We want to be able to reuse our templates, oftentimes on a moment's notice. So one of our big goals is for our template to completely and precisely specify our infrastructure, and we can rest assured that we can use it to create a fresh set of resources at any time. A good example of this is disaster recovery. So we have our recovery time objective, and oftentimes that may be an aggressive RTO, 20 minutes, 10 minutes, maybe even faster. We have our templates sitting there waiting for a disaster, and we have to be able to trust those templates. We have to know that they are going to create the resources exactly as we want them. Now, problems arise when our stacks and our stack resources are changed outside of CloudFormation. So ideally, if we want to change our stack, we're going to do a stack update using an updated CloudFormation template. So when we update our stack remains an accurate representation of our template. But what if we change resources outside of CloudFormation? So let's say we have a stack and it has a security group, some EC2 instances. Well, what if we go over to EC2 and we change the ingress on our security group? Or what if we change our instance type from a T2 micro to a T2 small, for example? Well, we have changed the characteristics of our stack and it no longer matches the template that created it. And that is drift. And that's where CloudFormation drift detection comes into play. This has been long anticipated, and in 2018, AWS introduced CloudFormation drift detection. What drift detection is going to do for us is analyze our stacks and compare it to our template, and it will detect changes to our stack resources. So, as I've already described, if our stack no longer matches our template, drift detection is going to detect that change. And it will give you detail, as we'll see here in a minute, exactly what has changed. It's actually going to give us JSON code of what has changed. So when our drift is detected, we have decisions to make. We want our template to match our stack. So there are a couple of ways we can go with this. If the changes to our stack are not changes that we want, well, then we're going to have to revert our stack back. We could do this manually. I'll use the security group example. If the security group ingress was changed, well, we could just go over to EC2, go into the security group, and change the ingress back to how we want it. That would eliminate the drift. If, on the other hand, we want that security group ingress, well, then we have to get our template up to date with that change. And one thing we can do is a stack update. With the new security group ingress, run the stack update, and then our template is going to match our stack. So again, the ultimate goal is to keep our template as an artifact that accurately describes our stack. It's okay to change the template. It's okay to update our stacks, but the best practice is to do this within CloudFormation so that the template and the stack stay in sync with each other. And again, especially for disaster recovery, we need to trust that template. We need to know that that template will build our environment exactly how we need it to be built. So let's go to the management console and look at an example of this. And what I've done is I've retained the two stacks that were created from the cross-stack reference lesson. And I'm going to focus on our app stack. So let's go to the template for that. And just remember that the app stack primary resource we're going to focus on is this EC2 instance. And actually, that is the only resource. Let's open a new tab and go over to EC2. And let's go to our instance. And let's go to Actions, Networking, and let's change this security group. Our instance is in this cross-stack demo security group. Let's instead put our instance with this default security group, and let's update. So think about this. We just changed one of our stack resources outside of CloudFormation. We just introduced Drift into our stack. So let's go over to CloudFormation, Actions, and let's detect Drift. Detects whether a stack's actual configuration has been changed outside of CloudFormation. That's what we want to do. Just takes a minute or so. And as expected, comes back with a status of drifted. Let's view the details. So we have one resource, this resource drifted. Now we have a decision to make. We know what changed, the security group changed. Now, if we want to accept that change, our drift detection is telling us, okay, this is expected, this is the original, but this is the current. Now, if we wanted to accept this, we could update our template and perform a stack update with this new security group. And that will get the template back in sync with our stack. And I'm going to leave that exercise because we're going to have a hands-on lab, and we'll actually do that in the hands-on lab. So I'll leave that. Just understand the concept. We could do a stack update with this new code. But what we also can do is go back over to EC2 and change back the security group. Well, wait a second. Aren't we breaking the cardinal rule? Changing a resource outside of CloudFormation? Well, technically, yes, but the change we are making is a change back to get us back in sync. It's not going to introduce drift. It's actually going to eliminate the drift. So let's bend that cardinal rule, and let's just do it right here. It's very quick to do it. So now we can run our drift detection again. And we're going to do that, but one thing I want to point out is that we can run drift detection on an individual resource. Now, realizing we only have one resource in this stack, but if we had multiple resources, each of them would have this checkbox. For the resource we want to run drift detection on, we click the checkbox, and our detect drift for resource for a single resource button becomes available. So let's click that. So we are detecting drift on this single resource. And very quickly, we're back in sync. So again, the two ways to get us back in sync would be to run a CloudFormation update, or just go back to the service, in this case EC2, and manually put the resource back in sync with the template. So that is CloudFormation drift detection. And again, there will be a hands-on lab, and you'll have an opportunity to run through this and ingrain these concepts. So thanks for joining me in this lesson. Let's move on to the next.